Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 116 of the Falcoholic Live. I am your host, Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin on Twitter, joined by my co-host this evening, Evan Birchfield at the very easy to remember at Evan Birchfield. Evan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I've got the window open. It's a nice night. Just excited to talk, more about this upcoming game and, maybe talk a little bit about last week.
Yeah. So nice night in Florida. Does that mean it's only like 93 or like?
No.
It's probably
exactly.
decent, right? Like 70s maybe.
Last night it's 71 right now, which
wow.
for Florida and living near the beach is like it's even a little colder than that. But it's can't complain.
70s in September in Florida. That's a rare sight. So got to enjoy that while it lasts. Got to enjoy that. But welcome to the show.
It'll be 90 tomorrow probably.
Yeah, probably. Just back to normal. Welcome in everyone. Todd Nielsen, Don Emery, Vlad, Tyler, Rain, Solaire, all you guys, Tyler Russell. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We're going to get to some good stuff tonight. We should have some other folks joining us as their time permits. Perhaps, most folks have had their souls crushed by the Falcons, so they need a little bit of time to recover. So I understand that. I'm contractually obligated to deliver takes every week at this time, so there's no escape for me, but for others, I don't necessarily blame them. But we're going to talk week 3 a little bit, talk about that disaster, talk about the upcoming disaster of Monday Night Football in week 4. And, get into some more like a meta conversation about whether the season's already over for the Falcons. Probably is, if we're being honest. But, spoiler alert. We'll get to that. Obviously, if you guys have questions, hit at the Falcoholic in the YouTube chat. That'll highlight it for me, make it a little easier to see, and we will try to get to as many of those as we can. So, Evan, I know you were here briefly for the post game. You got a few words in. Anything about that game stand out to you now after having a little bit more time to kind of absorb and process it?
Just the Nick Foles effect. He came in and, I know he had the one interception, but realistically that was the Denard and Allen Robinson contested catch where, that's not on Nick Foles. He gave Allen Robinson a chance to to make the catch, and it got intercepted. So you look at that, and Matt Nagy, kudos to him. Like, you're 2-0, you yank Mitch Trubisky. If they would have lost that game to the Falcons, I don't think it would have been just, Trubisky's terrible. It's just They lost to the Falcons. But yank Trubisky, brought in Nick Foles, and they never turned back. That passing game changed. Unfortunately, they came back 26-10, just like the Cowboys did, and it's tough, but like at this point, I think what's interesting is I know I can't speak for other people covering the Falcons for other sites and stuff, but everybody at our site is pretty much in step with the fans, where we're just kind of like over all this, bullshit basically, and the move's got to be made eventually. Maybe it'll take the Packers game, maybe it'll take the Panthers the following week, but the end's got to be near for Dan Quinn.
For us it's sad because we wanted the end to be near last year, and the team kind of inexplicably decided, let's run it back again and see if we get a different result the third time. And lo and behold, the result was the same the third time. And that just really stings when we as I like to think of ourselves as pretty smart football observers, but we're not getting paid probably whatever Thomas Dimitroff is getting paid, probably millions of dollars a year to make these decisions, and we're making them smarter than them. And whenever that happens, it tends to produce a strong reaction from the public. So these are not things that were difficult to see. These are not things that were particularly questionable. So there has to be some sort of reasoning behind why we didn't see the Falcons make the necessary moves when they needed to. And it's frustrating for us as fans of the team who want to see the team succeed, to see the team do well, to see the team not squander the final years of Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, and to see them basically stick to what we know is a losing strategy with Dan Quinn and Dirk Cutter. Like, this is not a match that's ever produced results. And, we saw, Dan Quinn and Steve Sarkisian, at least there was the upside of that playoff season. And they got a playoff win. And then they had an injury-ravaged 2018. And then, scapegoated Sark for 2018, which wasn't really necessary to fire the coordinators after 2018. It was kind of a weird move. And then now,
also,
go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to, not that he doesn't watch this show probably, but in case he does, Younghoe Koo, it's like I was kind of hard on him when I jumped on the post game, as you mentioned. But at the time, I didn't know he had a pulled groin or whatever he's on IR with, because obviously if you're a kicker, on it. But honestly, if he had that going on, they should have let Hofreiter do the kicking.
Yeah,
I mean, because he did kick. I know you're up there. The Syracuse guys. Yes. Why not? Especially after he missed the extra point. If you knew he had a groin injury that he eventually goes on IR, you're talking about the difference in going to overtime. Again, not that it mattered, because they would have found a way to blow it in overtime.
Probably.
But the 4 points that were left on the board, from the missed field goal, I think it was like 48 yards or something, which if you got a pulled groin, that's, that's a difficult kick.
Yeah.
And then the extra point, that's overtime right there if they
nail those
on that. So
yeah.
So I mean, I don't know the specifics. Maybe the coaching staff wasn't fully aware of it. I don't know. But if he has a pulled groin and people know about it, they should have some contingency plan for that sort of situation.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the reasons why Hofreiter was a smart pick, is because he can kick field goals. He was 3 of 4 in college, including a 52-yarder. He's someone that can kick. I mean, I don't think you want him as your permanent kicker, but does he have a better chance?
But in a pinch like that,
he can.
Why not?
Yeah,
especially after you watched him miss an extra point. Why would you think he's going to nail a 48-yarder when his long for us is like 50 or 51?
Yeah, so that was a questionable decision, obviously. We have our second guest joining us now, Corey Woodruff, also known as the Falcoholics movie correspondent, at Corey Woodruff 47 on Twitter. Corey, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. We just torture ourselves, don't we? I don't know why in the world we spend all this time, but it's the labor of love.
Yeah, we were saying, maybe everyone else is, too depleted from the first 2 weeks of covering, 3 weeks of covering this team, so they needed a night off. So we're the ones that have the stomach, and I am contractually obligated, so I have no choice. But you two did have a choice, so I appreciate you guys toughing it out this evening. But yeah, I was just getting done asking Evan about his thoughts on week 3, what happened there. So did you, after a little bit extra time to process here and actually, sit on the game, anything that stands out to you about week 3?
Yeah, I mean, I think it underscores a huge thing that has really plagued the Dan Quinn era of the Falcons, is that they just, I don't know, I think that NFL teams have to be able to handle things not going as planned. And when you have a quarterback like Nick Foles come in, who effectively lost that job to Mitchell Trubisky, and starts to play well, it's like, if you aren't ready, if you really had to spend this much time trying to slow down Mitchell Trubisky, and you just act like the world falls apart when Nick Foles comes in, it's indicative that you're not a very good football team.
Right.
And I just feel like that game, and the way that they lost, the way that the second that Nick Foles came in, who, all respect to him, he's a Super Bowl MVP, but he was also the backup quarterback behind Mitchell Trubisky this year. It's like, if you can't handle one thing going a little differently, the defense just completely folds in on itself. The offense completely lets go the second they start blitzing a lot and start getting a little bit of pressure on the offensive line. And then the play calling gets crazy.
Oh, Lord.
Did we lose him?
Oh, Lord.
We lost him.
Corey's internet has revolted.
While Corey's gone.
Yeah. Corey's internet has revolted.
Can
you hear us?
He'll be back.
Can you hear us, Corey?
Oh yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost you for a second. I think your internet. The take was too hot. It overloaded the internet.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, I finally tried the Falcoholic servers after all these years of trying.
Dave, we're going to get Dave on the hamsters, but yeah, go ahead.
Yes, exactly. Yes, but I just, losing a game in that fashion, and the clock management was so bad down the stretch. It's just the play calling was really, really, really pitiful. They didn't know how to handle the new offense that came in. It's indicative of not a good football team, and I think that's just where we are right now. Is that the Falcons play really well at certain points, and then they just play incredibly poorly at others. And I think that just means that this team is just stuck in the middle of the road and just does not know how to find consistency. And I just don't know what's going to fix that.
Yeah, and it's a difficult problem to fix too. I mean, like this team should not be 0-3. Like they're too good. We know they're too good. They're one of a handful of teams. I think they're the second highest scoring team ever to go 0-3, behind just the Bengals in like 85, who had 92 points through 3 games. Falcons have 90. So this is not something that happens very often for a team to score this effectively and be bad and be 0-3. And it says a lot about the state of the defense, which is a disaster. And honestly, like the defense was okay for much of week 3. Once they lost Darqueze Dennard, who seemed to finally be comfortable and was finally playing up to what we had hoped when we signed him, he gets put on IR now, so he's gone. So all the hope from his return has been, vanquished very quickly. And we see Tack, still hurt. Dante Fowler hurt and ineffective. Like Grady Jarrett got hurt at the end of the game. It's just like all these injuries are piling up. The team wasn't good when everyone was healthy. Now they're injured. It's very difficult to see an effective path forward for this team in its current iteration. And what Corey said was like, how do you fix it? And I don't think it's like something you can fix in season. I think it's like a mental block. It's like a cloud hanging over the team, and I don't think you can get rid of the cloud without getting rid of the coach and the general manager and kind of everyone associated with the Super Bowl, because I think ultimately it goes back to the Super Bowl and the team's kind of inability to get over that. And I think it haunts, Dan Quinn, and probably haunts probably haunts everyone, including Matt Ryan. But this team just coaches scared with the lead. Like it's their insistence on playing prevent, even though they're just so awful at it. Like they'd be better off just playing engage 8 than playing prevent, because they allow so much yards and so many touchdowns. It's like, well, if you can't stop deep throws when you're playing prevent, you might as well just play straight up. And then if you give up a deep throw, whatever, because you don't get pressure and prevent. You don't prevent anything, really. You prevent yourself from winning is what happens. So it's been a disaster on defense. And, honestly, the Falcons isn't as good as it could be. And there's a lot of reasons for that, too. Late in the game against the Bears, they basically disappeared, 3 straight 3-and-outs. And then Ryan, ends up throwing a pick on the final drive when he has to try to drive down the field and win the game with a touchdown. And it's, the whole thing's a disaster. And then we saw special teams completely fall apart this week. Obviously Younghoe, who was hurt, as Evan said, but, week before they can't manage to recover an onside kick. So there's not a single phase of this team that's working as it should be. So it's obviously a very frustrating time for Falcons fans and for all of us. But I don't know where they go from here. It's a difficult situation.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like, not to steer the conversation in any sort of direction, but like, I don't know. Are we on Dan Quinn watch right now? I mean, is this like?
I am.
I mean, yeah. I feel like, is there any way, like, when they lose on Monday night, barring a miracle, is there any way Blaine can look at a team that's 0-4? If they look listless against Green Bay, like, what do you do? I mean, I don't understand, because I'll be honest, I really like DQ as a person, and I still feel like he can be a good head coach in the future. I just feel like he's got a lot to learn from this experience, and I also feel like he needs a fresh start. So it's like, when does Blank make the best decision for everybody, I guess is what I'm wondering.
Well, what I wonder about is, I think for Blank, when he sees that the stadiums aren't packed, normally, not right now, obviously, but when the stadium's not packed, that's where he's going to really go, okay, something's wrong here. Because I don't know I don't know him personally or anything. I don't know how much he pays attention to social media, and that sort of thing, or if he has people that kind of fill him in. But you look at the Falcons posts or anything, fans aren't happy. So I imagine what's really helped Dan Quinn, as weird as it sounds, keep his job is the fact that currently there's nobody in the stands. I know against Carolina they're going to have, maybe 1,000 people or something.
Yeah.
But they're not getting a full, hey, we can fill out this stadium if we want. And, why is there only 2,000 people here? I think that kind of coverage has helped the situation, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And like they had a built-in, excuse. Like they could have been like, "Oh, COVID, can't have any fans in the stands," and then they would have had an excuse for why the stadium was empty. But no, they decided they were gonna, open it back up and have fans, and it's gonna be empty. Like, why would you risk COVID to go see this team? Like,
that's what I mean. Like even then, if it's, I know they had, I think it was like 500, but it looked like 30 people against the Bears. But like against Carolina, I don't know the exact number. I don't know that they've released it, but let's say it's 2,000. Surely in a city as big as Atlanta, you're going to find, even if they have to give it away, you're going to find 2,000 people who go watch the game. But what I'm saying is, I don't know how much, like what the exact number of seats, in that stadium is. But they're not going to get anywhere even near, like if there was no COVID or anything, they wouldn't be currently filling that stadium. I mean, they weren't in the past, so why would they when they're 0-4 if you want to go ahead and give us the loss? That's where I think where Blank shows up, in that situation, and he's like, where the hell is everyone? You know what I mean? Like right now, he doesn't have to see that because they can't, put a bunch of people in the stadium.
Right. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, he has to know because Blank, despite, what people may think from him bringing back Quinn, like, I don't think he brought back Quinn because he is under any pretense. Like, I think he brought back Quinn because he has a strong relationship with him, and he was worried, that they wouldn't... Like, I think Blank is probably a little gun-shy because I think when they fired Sarkisian, they had an idea of who they wanted to get to replace him, and it didn't work for various reasons, so he might have been a little gun-shy about the candidates that were available last offseason. Maybe I don't know who they would have been. It wasn't a tremendous crop of head coaching candidates last offseason, if we're being totally honest. So, I think the crop this year is stronger, so maybe that was part of the decision too. We also know they have a great personal relationship, and that probably influenced it as sad as that is, and it has how that shouldn't work for, a businessman like Blank. It is something that weighs on people's minds, but...
and Dan Quinn's getting a lot of the heat, but it needs to be a clean sweep. You get rid of Dimitrov too. Mm-hmm. I don't think even by us, we need to do more, instead of just focusing solely on Dan Quinn. It's a package deal. You get rid of Dan Quinn, you're getting rid of everybody. Like Dimitrov's got to go too. He's, in my opinion, just as guilty in this kind of situation we're in.
Yeah. Because... Like, I know Anthony White asked about it in the chat, do we think Dimitrov should be fired with Quinn? And he has to be. It's like Dimitrov, for as much as all of us at the Falcoholic personally dislike him, like, it is an above average GM at worst. Like, what he's good at, the draft, certain positions, he is a good GM in that respect. With free agents, it's more of a mixed bag. With the salary cap, it's generally been okay. So overall, he's an above-average GM, but the reason that you have to get rid of him is because you're not going to get a top head coach to come in here and sit behind a lame duck GM. You're just not going to, because if you're not getting a clean sweep, Dimitrov has to be considered to be on the hot seat. Any smart head coach would realize that Dimitrov has been here a really long time. He's been here through a lot of losing seasons, and if he's now getting what would be a third chance to make this work. It's just not something that I think quality coaching candidates would want to be a part of, because a new GM might come in 2022 and want their own head coach, and if you don't perform well in that first year, you could be out the door just because the new GM wants their head coach. So the Falcons have to clean slate for that reason, because they really need a package deal. They need to get a head coach and GM that want to work together. And
kind of like the Raiders did with Gruden and Mayock.
Yeah, and there is like people have mentioned, we've talked about it too, like Louis Riddick and Eric Bieniemy. Those two, I don't know personally how they, work together. If they're interested in working together, that's a combo that we've floated. But there's probably a lot of combinations you could make. And GM candidates aren't as like well known necessarily as head coaching candidates, just because it's a little bit more of like, oh, who are the top directors of player personnel out there and stuff like that you can poach. But like, you have to basically start over. I don't think you can, it's not necessarily because Dimitroff has been a terrible GM that he would be fired. It's more that you just can't. Like, you have to just kind of start over. The whole team just needs a fresh start from start to finish. And
a culture change.
It does, yeah. And, and that's just the way it has to be, unless you want to be picking from the dregs of the head coaching candidates that don't really care if they have to be, at the mercy of potentially a new GM next year. So, I do worry that, Dimitroff sticks around because Blank has shown remarkable loyalty to him for whatever reason, but I don't think either one of them survives if one of them goes. I think it has to be a clean sweep.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like Arthur Blank isn't an idiot, which is nice because I feel like Dimitroff, I really, over the years, I feel like he's been good at certain things. Like I don't at all feel like he's assembled a terrible like front office in terms of scouting. I think he's tried to surround himself with people who understand different positions differently than he does. Mm-hmm. And they've had some good drafts over the year. That 2018 draft is looking pretty good, I think, on paper. The 2019 draft looks pretty decent already. 17 was kind of a disaster, but you got a handful of players out of that in later rounds. But that 2019 free agency offseason plan was absolutely disastrous. And I think that when you look at signing Jamon Brown and James Carpenter and then drafting Chris Lindstrom, I don't think it takes the Football Outsiders people to tell you that that's really shows a lot of inconsistency and just no forward plan. And when that all happened, I remember when they signed Carpenter and Brown, I was like, all right, well, we'll how it goes. And then they drafted Chris Lindstrom, and I was just kind of like, oh, okay, cool, a tackle. And it's like, oh, he's going to play guard. It's like, what? He's playing guard?
Yeah.
So one of these people isn't going to see the field.
Yep.
So it's just like, what is that? And I feel like, go old school here. Do you guys remember the 2014 offseason or the 13 offseason when they signed Steven Jackson, Osi Umenyiora were less good than the players that they replaced in 2012 they cut. And then the year after, you blow all that money on John Asamoah, Tyson Jackson, and Paul Soliai, who Soliai was all right, but he was the only one that even made a moderate impact, and that was $30-35 million worth of cap. So I think Dimitroff's lack of ability of even understanding he had one good offseason of free agency signings in 2016, but I always accredit that more to Kyle Shanahan.
They were Kyle Shanahan's guys, if you look at it, Aldrick Robinson, Mack. Basically all the pieces were guys that Kyle Shanahan had a relationship with. So
I just, I don't know. I feel weird, being I want someone to lose their job. But then again, it's just I don't think this iteration of the Falcons is going to do anything that's going to make fans excited in the next few years. I feel like you might next year, if you change out offensive coordinators again, and they somehow land on somebody, you might could get back to where they were in 2017. But if that's the best you can do, it's you can do better. And I just don't understand how they will be able to do that if they don't really look at this entire organization and realize that maybe at least maybe not a roster reset is needed, but I think they are going to have to bring in a new coaching staff and GM office. But then again, with the way the cap is looking, they're going to have to get a coaching staff that's going to be able to maximize the talent on this roster, because this thing, as badly as people want to think they can just snap away the cap situation, you can clear some space, but you're going to have to get a lot out of your best players that are already here.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to go on a spending spree in 2021. You're not going to be able to bring in any high-priced guys. you're going to be lucky if you can basically not have to make any major cuts, and it'll depend on what the salary cap is. With some fans returning, it might not be as dire as people thought. Like, it might not go all the way to like 175 or something, but so if it could tread water, if they could get it back to like what the cap was this year, they'll be okay. They're not like the Saints or the Eagles, who were 60+ million under, like, assuming the cap went up. Like, they're not in that situation. I think they're like right about zero if the cap was projected to stay the same or something like that. So you can make it work. It's not a disaster, but you don't really have the space to sign anyone to help you. So you're gonna have to draft well, and you're gonna have to do it with what they have, and that that'll be interesting because there's a lot of players on the roster that are free agents, that are key contributors, but the core is going to be mostly intact, and there are some contracts you can get rid of, like James Carpenter, for instance, that can net you some money, but it's not going to be a lot, and at the same time, you also need your guys that you spent a ton of money on this year, like Dante Fowler, to not be terrible, because he has been awful so far, and he's been one of the worst starting edge defenders in the league, statistically. So a lot of that has to do with his ankle injury, I would imagine. Like, he does look hobbled, but you can't be throwing $16 million away on a guy that is among the worst in the league at his position. So it's like Flash is a big Vic Beasley all over again. So I'm hoping it's injury related, but we'll see.
That's what made me nervous. I remember saying it on your show a couple of times, like when we did the show during the off season. And it's like, I was really hoping it wasn't the Aaron Donald effect of just playing with, a freak athlete, because Clay Matthews even had like 8 or 8.5 sacks on that team. Right. Fowler's best year comes with Donald. And, it might be a little bit of that, unfortunately. So,
yeah,
but that was the risk, because you had to get somebody, Still searching for a pass rush.
Right, yeah, because we know they're not going to spend a first-round pick on it again, so.
Yeah, because wasn't it Robert Quinn who they were hoping to get, and then he chose, I think it was Robert Quinn.
Maybe, yeah.
Who chose, like, the Bears or something.
Yeah. I still remember them, passing on both, Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith, in the 2019 offseason.
They're not very good, right?
Yeah, those guys suck, just let Green Bay have both of those guys for, not that much, and why sign one of those guys when
we'll find out on Monday, won't we?
Right. Yeah. Why sign one of those guys when you could sign both James Carpenter and Jamon Brown, okay, and then eat most of Brown's, dead money this season. So, yeah, why not? We could have spent that $8 million on Preston Smith, but instead we're paying Jamon Brown to not be on the roster. So,
we're paying a lot of people not to be on the roster.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's bad. It's a bad situation there. Tyler Russell wanted to know, is Dan Quinn, wow, still helping choose our draft picks? Yes. He is allegedly still, him and Dimitrov are kind of linked with that. Yeah. Like, it's very much a team effort. So some of this, is certainly Quinn's influence in terms of, the players that he wants for his defense. We now know that his defense does not work. It's not good, so maybe that's part of the problem. But a lot of the players have been good. Just I wonder how good you can really be in this defense. Even Seattle's running the same exact scheme, and if there's a defense that's as bad as the Falcons, it's probably Seattle's. Like, they're allowing more yards by far than the Falcons. I think they're allowing like 450 yards a game or something ridiculous. They are big bad too. And it's like, I think teams have basically figured out this Seattle scheme is just kind of a joke. Like, it's, don't have the Legion of Boom? Oh, wow, it's actually just not a very good scheme.
That scheme is so dependent on personnel.
Yeah.
It's not funny. Mm-hmm. It's just like trying to run a West Coast offense with Ben Roethlisberger. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's just not going to do anything. You can try, but it's just like...
He's just going to be lumbering out there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it's... Yeah, so, and it's like... I remember when Dan Quinn got hired, the coach I wanted was Todd Bowles, who went to the Jets and failed. But part of me wonders if it wasn't really him. It's just kind of the stink of the Jets that brought him down, because the Jets are just an awful organization.
Where's he at now?
Tampa Bay, coordinating one of the best defenses in the NFL. Yeah. So, I think Todd Bowles is legitimately a very good defensive coordinator. Maybe could be a good head coach if given a situation that wasn't a dumpster fire. But again, it's like you never know with these guys. And for the record, I don't think we should go after a defensive head coach. We need an offensive guy, for the love of God. Like, stop forcing Matt Ryan to change coordinator. Like, whenever we get a good coordinator, he just leaves because Matt Ryan turns him into a head coach, and then Matt Ryan has to learn another offense. So we're going to be going on like offense number 6 now if we don't get an offensive head coach. So please.
Well, I mean, the modern NFL, you have to, like, it kind of was trending in that way over the last decade, anyways. But now it doesn't actually matter how great your defense is. If you just have a pretty good one or average one, you'll be fine. It's how dominant is your offense, because there was a time there where the Chiefs were really good. I mean, they're good now still, but where they had one of the laughing stock defenses, and they're still not even known for their defense, but their offense is so dominant that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and their defense just plays so loose and with so much swagger because they have so much confidence in the offense. That's part of the reason. That's part of the reason it worked in 2016. It's not like that defense was actually very good for the Falcons. Mm-hmm. It was just good enough, and that's all you
have to be.
Yeah,
be average,
right?
In your,
just be average. And that would be nice. Like, we've had an average defense one time during the Dan Quinn era. Let that sink in, folks. So
that's all we want is average.
Yeah, 2017. I mean, it was actually good. It was actually a good defense that year, to be fair. But it was top 10. So, but that's the only time it's been not bad, was that one season. So I think it's pretty clear that Dan Quinn is not a good defensive mind, not a good defensive coach, not someone that's going to actually improve your defense, because there's nothing to his scheme. Like, it doesn't help your players in any way. It's just like a template that you kind of put guys in, and then if they're not good enough, then it looks like a disaster. Whereas if you look at like Tampa Bay, like, they blitz like crazy and it works. At least they do something other than just sit back and play cover 3 and let teams do whatever they want. So it's just time. It's time to move on from what we've got on defense, and it's time to move on from Cutter and his, outdated offense as well. Like, I'm just tired of having kind of just dinosaur schemes in here. Like, we see all these teams that are the cream of the crop of the NFL going with these bright, young offensive minds and embracing analytics and doing all these things. And then we have the Falcons, who hired Dirk Cutter and are running the Legion of Boom defense from the early 2010s and have made absolutely no changes to that formula, and still don't play matchups with their quarterbacks. So,
and we've known this for years.
We've known this for
continuously wasted, like Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, wasted years.
Yeah, and it's sad. It's really sad. But like, I just don't know what to say. Like, I can't really say anything else. Like, you can't just keep hiring dinosaurs. Like, the NFL is not going back to the ground and pound, old days, and it's not going back to the, Dirk Cutter 4 verts, drop back to pass for like 5 seconds, and teams will just kind of casually let you throw it down the field every play, and then you can just run on 2nd and long. Shout out to that stat from today, which was that the Falcons run the 3rd most of any NFL team on 2nd and long. Basically, the simplest tenet of analytics is to not run on 2nd and long, and the Falcons do it the 3rd most of any team. So that should tell you.
That's waving the white flag, ain't it?
Yeah, basically. It means you're playing for 3rd down, which they've been solid at getting. But, why play for 3rd down when you can just get a 1st down on 2nd down? That's my question. But I guess, it's crazy. Like, Dirk Cutter is aggressive on 1st down, and we've seen it work really well. The Falcons average 10.7 yards per attempt on 1st down. That's a lot. That's a lot, folks. That's a lot of yards per attempt, 10.7. That would be like a historic season if Matt Ryan finished with that kind of yards per attempt. And on 2nd down, not only do they run the ball, the 3rd most of any team, they also throw the ball short of the sticks, because they average 4.1 yards per attempt on 2nd down. And it's not because nobody's catching the ball. It's because they're throwing short of the sticks on purpose. So, yeah, the offense hasn't been the big problem, but it has to be perfect for them to win with this defense, and under Dirk Cutter it won't be. Like, he's not someone who's going to embrace any sort of analytics. He's not someone who's really been willing to change or incorporate any of Shanahan's stuff like he said he was going to. He's not someone that can call a good run game. So he's like using all these runs, but he has basically no feel for what he's doing with that. So it's just like wasted plays. And then we finally get to a game against the Bears where we are running the ball well, particularly the second half, and then they just don't run the ball. Like, then they decide, actually, I have realized the error of my ways. I'm just going to start passing all the time now, and then you take like a minute off the clock on 3 drives. Like,
it's like they really wanted to lose. It's like, this is working. Stop.
Stop it.
Stop what you're doing. It's too effective.
5.1 yards per carry they were averaging. I think it was even more in the third quarter, and they were just like, you know what? No, I don't think I will. I don't think I will continue to run the ball. Like, it's it's just inexplicable, man. Like, I don't like, how can your offensive scheme be aggressive downfield passing on first down and then conservative run on second and long and short passing on second and third down? Like, if you're going to be aggressive on first down, you have to be aggressive on second down, because you're going to mess up on first down a lot. If you throw the ball downfield, you're going to have a lot of incompletions. So why the hell would you decide that you need to be conservative on second down? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any goddamn sense.
What would you say overall for 3 games? Your yards per average carry, what would you say is a good number for that? Like, what would you say if I told you this running back is averaging 3 yards per carry?
That would be bad.
Would you say, oh, that's bad?
Yeah, it's real bad.
What would you say is good?
4.5.
Okay, so like Brian Hill's averaging 5.6.
Yeah, 5.6 is great.
First 3 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Gurley and Ito Smith are both averaging 4 even. So, you know, it's not like they're like in the 2 or the 3. Like, they can run the ball.
They're okay. It's better than it was last year. Yeah, I mean, last year was a disaster, but
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they had like,
and plus Gurley's not being used in the passing game at all.
No, and that's a big problem. Yeah, because like last year, Devontae Freeman was like a fixture of the passing game, and they were actually good throwing the ball to him. Like, he caught like 60-something passes, I think, and Gurley's barely been targeted. They just haven't really used the running back a lot in the passing game, and the running back has traditionally been a very like an outlet for Ryan when he's getting pressured, like the hot route. The hot read to the running back who's leaking out, you know, that has been a play that's worked for them a lot in the past, and they've just kind of decided to go away from that, which I don't really understand. You're going to pay all this money to 2 running backs and then not even use them in the passing game. It's just kind of like inexplicable, because we know Gurley has been a good receiver in the past. I mean, he's looks like he's lost a step in terms of his speed, but he's still a good receiver. So, you know, and if you never throw the ball to him, then teams will start to just kind of hone in on the fact that it's going to be a run whenever he's on the field. So, I have a lot of issues with Cutter's scheme. Like, the use of play action is not enough. Pre-snap motion, not enough. It's easily telegraphed what they're doing, because they get into these 3rd and longs a lot with these 2nd and 10 runs. So they're basically forced into passing or running a draw and then not getting the 3rd down. So, I just don't really get the philosophy behind it. It just,
I don't think there is one.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like they should stop. First of all, we've talked about this, but I just have to drive it home again. Like, don't hire an offensive coordinator that doesn't know how to run your goddamn offense. Like, don't hire Dirk Cutter to run an offense that's not his. Like, who signed off on that? That's just pure idiocy, first of all. And then he comes in and tries to run it, and he can't run it, so then he goes back to his offense. And then this offseason, you're like, actually, we're going back. We're going to make him run the Shanahan offense again. And then he clearly still can't run it. So, like, there's no decision-making here that makes any sense. Like, just let him run his own offense. At least he knows how to run that. Like, it's not great, but, you know, it's better than trying to have him run a Shanahan offense that he has no idea how to run. So it's just... Man, like, whoever signed off on this hire needs to be fired immediately, because that's definitely one of the most inexplicable things. Like, don't hire someone to run an offense they've never run. Like, it's just pure idiocy. Like,
plus you have Julio Jones and Matt Ryan still in their prime.
Yeah.
Let's not waste their years. Then it's like, well,
you know, we could go and hire anyone from like the hundreds of people that know how to run a West Coast offense, or we could just hire Dirk Cutter again to run an offense he doesn't know how to run. Yeah.
The stat I always go back to, and I don't think it'll be broken this year, is that the last time we had a 100-yard rusher was, obviously it was the end of 2018, because we didn't have one last year under Dirk. And the last time before that we went a whole season without a 100-yard rusher was 2013, and that was Dirk Cutter's offensive coordinator. Like, I don't find that as a coincidence. And obviously having a 100-yard rusher isn't guaranteed for success, but it certainly shows that your run game at least had one solid day. Where like I don't see that happening this year at all.
Yeah.
I mean, Gurley got close maybe, but I don't see it happening. I mean, I don't know who it would happen against.
Right. I mean, he could have got 100 this week, like week 3.
But they went away from it, like you said.
So if they're not going to give him enough carries, like, why is he here? Like, why would you pay him $5.5 million to get like 10 carries? Like, it just.
Also, what are you protecting him from? If that's that'd be the other argument. We wanted to limit his carries for what?
We're not making the playoffs, so yeah, you might as well run him. Like.
He's on a 1-year deal. No offense to him, but like, you got to use him for what he is. Like, I don't understand that.
What are they doing? Like, what are they doing with anything this year? It's like, what are they doing? Like,
it was like
everything is going poorly.
It was just like they had a dartboard of like off-season ideas, and they just threw it. They closed their eyes and just threw it, and it was like, sign Todd Gurley. Okay, like.
Fine.
It'll help us sell tickets.
Yeah, I mean that's why they did it. Like 100%, they signed Todd Gurley as a PR stunt. That is 100% the reason.
And in Falcons fashion, there's no fans yet.
Yeah, joke's on you.
Yeah, and that to me is like okay, guys. Like, I mean, like I don't think it was the worst move from a strategic standpoint.
I
if
think
you were going to use him,
jerk. If you had somebody who actually understood how run games are supposed to be played, I think he would be okay. He's only, 25 or 26? Sure, he's got a knee thing, but it's not like he's missed games or left games because of it. Knock on wood, it hasn't flared up yet that we know of. Like, I mean, he had a 14-carry, 80-yard and a touchdown day against the Bears. That's not terrible numbers.
No.
It's just Dirk doesn't know how to use him. You see the plays, it'll be like, hey, let's have Gurley run straight up into the, just go straight up and he gets stuffed and that's it. Like, you got to, do some outside stuff or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, see the Brian Hill thing was literally just Brian Hill juking around people. Like, it wasn't by design. No. There's no way you could design that. He was just kind of zigzagging all around and found an opening and scored.
Right. I mean, like, their whole strength is they have athletic offensive linemen, so they need to get the offensive line on the move, hitting guys at the second level and stretching the defense out and wearing them out. Like that's how you make the West Coast work, you idiot. Like, you're supposed to string them out and wear them out with the run game and then run down the field with your receivers when they're tired. Like, this is simple stuff. Like, any idiot who's been at least even like immersed even the slightest bit in the West Coast offense knows that this is like the two things that go together. You wear out the defense by making them run side to side and calling wide zone stuff, and then you throw down the field because they're tired from chasing your running back all over the damn place. But no, we could just run it up the middle every play with our light offensive line, who are basically designed for zone, and we're just going to power it up the middle and call draws all day because Dirk Cutter doesn't have any goddamn clue what he's doing with the run game. Like, it's just like you can't make it up. Like, it's just sad.
Yeah, and listen to last week's show before the Bears game, and it might have been Eric. I can't remember who it was, but they're literally like, hey, you know how you beat the Bears and you have a successful run? As you were mentioning, run it outside. Have Hicks, have Mack, have whoever else chasing them outside. And they didn't really do that. So it's not like it, we're getting it. Why aren't they?
Yeah. It's just
they're getting paid to get it, and they're just
not. They're getting paid to do it, and that's probably the saddest thing is that someone is paying these guys tons of money to like run this offense very poorly, and it's really a testament to the level of skill that the Falcons have, the level of talent that this offense is still like a top 10 offense despite all these schematic issues, and that's basically what it is. Like, the receiving core is so good, and Matt Ryan is so good, and the offensive line honestly is pretty good too. Like, even with Matt Gono involved at right tackle, like, they're still top 10 in sack rate. Like, Matt Ryan's not. I mean, against the Bears at the end of the game, he was dealing with a lot of pressure, but like on the whole, they've protected him quite well.
And you're going against Khalil Mack.
Like, Matt Gono was going to have problems with Khalil Mack. I don't blame him there, but like, he's been fine for the most part. Like, this is an offense that really should be so much better. The Falcons right now, I just did my stats preview today, so I have all the stats ready to go. Okay, so the Falcons are allowing a 3.7% sack percentage. So that means Matt Ryan sacked on 3.7% of his dropbacks. That's 6th in the league. So they're a top 10 pass protecting offense at this point. So they should be better, But meanwhile, the team is just 16th on third down because they're playing for all these, third and shorts and messing up there. And they're 10th in scoring efficiency. Like, they're not scoring enough. Now they're 6th in points. They score 30 points per game, so that's good if you can keep that up. And they're getting plenty of yards. But, like, the issue with this offense is that they're not efficient right now. Like, their yards per play is just 5.9. That's 12th. So, like, for the amount of yardage they have and points they have, they should be more efficient. And they're just not. The running game obviously is part of that problem. Like, the running game is just pretty mediocre. But they should be better than they are. And the same can be said for the defense. Honestly, like, they're actually doing quite well in some defensive stats. Like, they are 9th on third downs. Like, they only allow a 37.8 third down conversion rate, which is 9th in the league. And this defense is literally the worst at scoring. Like, how? Like, there's a lot of stats that say this defense shouldn't be this bad. Like, they pressure the quarterback on 25% of dropbacks. That's 9th best. They create, the 12th most turnovers of any defense. But they allow the 32nd most points. Like, it's just inexplicable. Like, this defense should be better. It should be. Like, statistically, it should be better. So I don't know what the hell the disconnect is, but I mean, it has to be mental or the scheme. Like,
I think it's got to be at the core. I mean, I think when you look at a team like this, they really are at the point now where people like John Kaminsky and Mykal Walker and Bleedy Way Wilson are out there making plays, and it's like, you should not be seeing this much talent begin to coalesce, but then just train wreck sequences, or just sequences where there shouldn't be a defense out there in the first place because there's no reason to be. I mean, if Mitchell Trubisky can run 45 yards, and just sneak past your linebackers, it's just like, I mean, there are literally sequences where it just looks like there's absolutely no force. Like, there's just no defense being played. And it has to be, I think you're right, Kevin, it has to be mental and scheme. It has to be, there's something so inherently flawed that even the success the Falcons find gets negated by how they're approaching things and just whatever they're using to approach it. So I really feel like that there might be a much better team to be found in the future by somebody else, because whatever is working right now in the short term is always getting blown up in the long term by this just feeble attempt of just, I don't know. It's just like they can build this lead, and then the second they get a big lead, it's just they really do just shut down.
Yeah.
The play calling becomes horrified. Like, Dirk Cutter does not call play calling with agency. It's like whenever things are going really well, he cages up. They don't really let their playmakers make plays. Like, occasionally he'll make a big gamble on a pass, but that's because his offense historically has always rewarded the pass more than the run. So it's just like there just isn't any sort of redeeming quality to the totality of this team. You can look at all of these good players and good moments. Like, no one even talked about how good Chris Lindstrom has been this year. He's been really, really good. Like, McGarry was looking pretty sharp. Matt Gano's done a really nice job stepping in. Hayden Hurst has been really, really interesting.
Russell Gage, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Russell Gage has been fantastic. I mean,
Calvin Ridley's literally like a
number 2 overall receiver in the league right now. Yeah.
It's like they don't even need Julio Jones to score 20-something points on offense. So it's just like they're doing really well at a lot of things, but they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. So it's just like,
That's what I wonder.
We've
talked about this for years. We've talked about this, that it's the talent making that's what's winning games. Well, not now, but that's what's getting them in a position to win games on offense. It's not so much Dirk. It's just how talented. There's a ton of talent on offense.
Yeah, and like
we're in another year of it.
This offense is objectively more talented than 2016's offense. Like, objectively speaking, this offense is far more talented than 2016's offense. Like, it's not. I don't even think it's particularly close, if we're being honest. Like, who was their starting tight end in 2016? Jacob Tamme. Shout out Jacob Tamme. Like, they have Hayden Hurst, first round talent.
Imagine Shanahan having Calvin. No offense to Mohamed Sanu, having Calvin Ridley at this level of what he's playing, and Russell Gage.
Yeah, this team would be setting the league on fire with Kyle Shanahan. Like, and that's what's so sad. Like, they just, Dan Quinn got really lucky with the Shanahan hire, and then promptly proved that he has absolutely no instincts for hiring offensive coordinators. Like, he has no idea. Like, he's that head coach that has absolutely no idea anything to do with the offense. Because if he had any idea how to call an offense, he wouldn't have hired Dirk Cutter. because he would know that the West Coast offense and whatever the hell Dirk runs is not the same thing. I feel like maybe he didn't even know. He was like, oh, well, who do you guys know? Like, Steve Sarkisian, that was the other guy that I knew. I don't really know anyone else. So, like, Dimitrov, who do you know? Well, I guess we could hire Dirk Cutter again. Matt Ryan likes him. He's a cool dude.
I mean, think of like Devontae Freeman. He's been 1,000+ yard rusher twice, and it was 2015 and 2016. Like, that's not a coincidence.
No. Yeah, and then like
he hasn't been since. Like
no.
he really hasn't came close.
No, Shanahan can turn literally anybody off the street into a 1,000-yard rusher. Like that's just his talent.
Like, and I'm gonna check Tevin Coleman's right now just to verify, but I'm sure it's I'm sure you look at 2015, 2016, and it's his best. Touchdown wise, definitely.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it's just like it's very bizarre and it's sad. But like. Basically what the guests have said is that this team has enough talent to be good with a better coaching staff. Like, I think they can compete immediately in 2021. Like, I don't think they need to spend a lot on free agency. I think if they have a good draft class to patch some of the holes they're going to lose in terms of the guys that are leaving, like, this is a team that can compete. I mean, I don't know if they're Super Bowl caliber, probably not, but like, are they going to be able to run with the Chiefs? Probably not, but like competitive in the NFC, I mean, probably. And like it just like they have the talent to attract a top head coach. Like they do. This is not a dumpster fire. Like everyone who's like, there's people on Twitter that are like, oh yeah, Eric Bieniemy, I think he'll take the Jets over the Falcons. Are you kidding me? Are you stupid? No one would choose the Jets ever if they had a chance. Like people had a choice years ago to choose the Jets, and the Jets could get Adam Gase to go there, for God's sake. And then they didn't fire Adam Gase probably because they knew no one would go there. Like, no one will choose the Jets.
Coach is on our sideline right now. Let's not kid ourselves.
Dan Quinn to the Jets. Oh, God.
He's totally going to go to the Jets, and I'm sure he'll do a good job at first because the Jets need a Dan Quinn. Like, I really think forgive me for using a hockey analogy, but to me, Dan Quinn reminds me a lot of Peter Laviolette, the NHL coach, because Laviolette is known for going into a team and just changing the culture and getting a lot of really quick success. And then he pushes them to some sort of a championship level. And then right after that, if you don't hit that window and the second you lose that championship game, everything falls to the wayside. It happened while he was in I think in Philadelphia. It happened while he was here in Nashville. I think it happened at his first stop in Carolina. And that may happen with the Capitals. So there's just certain coaches, I think, that can come in and do a really good job for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And I really feel in a legit way in that 2017 season, a lot of the reason they were doing really well, while at times maybe not quite playing to their potential, is because Quinn had such a healthy culture. But the problem with this culture to me is just like, the second any adversity hit in a legitimate way, it wasn't the type of adversity you can deal out in a locker room talk. It was injuries. It was scheme not working. It was people taking longer to develop. It was draft picks not panning out. It was legitimate stuff that you cannot fix with a locker room talk. You cannot fix with team bonding activities. Any type of legitimate football schematic, brainy stuff that you have to solve as a head coach, I just don't think he can quite get there, at least right now in his career. So I do feel like he will get a head coaching job next year. And I think there will be teams that we're going to want him, that want that, see if they can find that success that Atlanta had and get a really smart offensive guy to run the offense and let him take care of the culture. But Atlanta has grown past what Dan Quinn does well. They do not need someone to come in and build a healthy culture. They need someone who is smart enough to be able to win multiple football games in a consecutive manner. I mean, it's that simple. This team, I'm sure that there's a reason they're all defending the coach. And when they can do all these things right during the week, and then when it comes down to the brass tacks, they are incapable of performing, because football is not just about platitudes. It's not just about culture. It's not just about a brotherhood. It is literally shrewd. It's about scheme. It's tactician. It's war. I mean, you really have to go out there and outmaneuver your opponent. And healthy culture, healthy, any sort of like, the stuff that Dan Quinn does really well, it really only gets you so far. And the only year they really pushed to be one of the best teams in the NFL really came when they had an offensive coordinator who was taking care of a lot of that himself. So I really feel like that, while I really, really like Dan Quinn as a person, and I've spent a long time trying to defend him and really make excuses for some of the things that have not happened, I think I'm at the point now where it's just kind of like, he just is not going to be the coach to get Atlanta where they want to go in the future. And that stinks. I hate it. I wish he was. I wish that was the coach we could rally behind. But realistically, the way that this team is built, what they need to do to be successful in the future is find someone who can come in and handle the X's and O's and handle the game management and really just handle the winning. Because the only thing I think this Atlanta team is really bad at is doing just that. They can't win.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're
Plus,
absolutely... Yeah, go ahead.
They need an offensive mind, not to go off on a rant here, but how many current NFL teams have a defensive mind? I mean, I think Belichick, but I mean, that you can't really use that as an example. But you look at a lot of the top teams, like the Packers, we'll be facing them. They're one of the better teams in the NFL right now. And that was Matt LaFleur. He was our quarterback coach,
yeah,
correct?
We were, quote, not very impressed with his work and didn't want to interview him.
Exactly. I mean, Shanahan, offensive mind. Andy Reid, offensive mind. Help me out here. I mean, you look at Harbaugh, he was a special teams coordinator. Yeah. He wasn't a defensive. I mean, really, I'm struggling to think of, maybe if somebody in the chat can think of something. Give me some defensive coordinators who were actually successful. Somebody said Mike Tomlin. That's probably the best,
Mike Tomlin,
aside from Belichick. Because Mike Zimmer, I mean, I like him, but
that team's a disaster. Yeah.
They haven't won a game this year either. So, but I can name off several offensive minds because this is an offensive league and it's been going in this direction, but not every team has adjusted to that sort of thing, and the Falcons haven't. And Dan Quinn, if you're going to be the head coach as a defensive mind, you better have a pretty damn good defense, and we just haven't. I mean, you mentioned 2016. I don't know what the hell was happening in 2016. It was a party, and we all just enjoyed it, but it clearly wasn't the same throughout his tenure here. And you know, he's not even really doing the defense now. It's like separated between two other guys. So I've said this in my articles. I've said it on the podcast. Why are you here?
Yeah.
You know, if I'm showing up to a job and I'm not doing the work, you know, that my job description has, why would I expect them to pay me?
Yeah. Exactly. No, you're 100%
Mike
right.
Vrabel, okay, that's probably the best example. I like that example.
But again,
the Titans are doing well. But Arthur Smith who's going to, I think it's Arthur Smith, who's going to be gone because
and they're going to have the same problem the Falcons had. Yeah, which is that their
Titans
offensive.
Fans they're not happy right now with anything. They're 3-0, but everyone's mad at Arthur Smith because they feel like they're mismanaging Derrick Henry. And
don't worry, he'll be gone and he'll go back to being the Titans again.
That's what I'm saying. Like, well, I mean, that's what killed McVay last year, right? Is the pressure to use Todd Gurley when they paid him so much money. You know, when the run game wasn't working.
He even said in one of his things that he wasn't even quite sure how to use Gurley when they got like to the goal line. And I only know because I had Todd Gurley on my fantasy team the last 2 years. They bring in Malcolm Brown, and Gurley still had 14 touchdowns, and they didn't know how to use him.
Right.
He's probably on pace for what, maybe 8 or something? Because he's not getting passing game work.
I think he has 2. Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's about right. I mean, maybe more like 10, but like Gurley's still a good short yardage running back, but like you don't pay $5.5 million for that. Like you could go get LeGarrette Blount off the street if you want a short yardage back and pay him the vet minimum, you know.
Yeah.
But
I just keep in my mind that play where Brian, not last week, but when they brought in Brian Hill for his first carry on a third down. It was a 3rd and short, and obviously he got stuffed. It was his first carry of the season. It was against the Seahawks in Week 1. And why would you need this? It's a crucial 3rd down, short, and you bring in Brian Hill for his first carry of the season, and he gets stuffed, and then you go for it on 4th down, and obviously don't get it because you're already not. It's not 3rd and short anymore. It's like 3rd and 3 or whatever. Yeah. They don't know. I mean, McVay wasn't sure how to use him, but he got enough out of him. We have no idea how to use him.
No, that just it's like sunk cost at this point. But I mean, honestly, the crux of the problem with Dan Quinn is exactly what Corey has said, which is that at the end of the day, he's just not a very smart football coach. Like, he is what he's good at. He's good at. He's a good motivator. He's the guy that you want to set the tone and the culture of your team. He's, by all accounts, seems like a dude that is genuinely well liked by like everyone around him, by the media, by, coaches, by players especially. I mean, we've gotten a lot of free agents because they knew that Dan Quinn had such a good reputation. But when it comes to X's and O's, when it comes to game planning, defensive scheming, helping anything to do with the offense or special teams, Dan Quinn is not a smart football coach. Like, he doesn't implement any of the things you would see from a smart football mind. There's no edge with this coaching staff. The Falcons are constantly being outcoached every single week. And the only time they weren't was when they had Kyle Shanahan calling the offense, and they were burying teams with his genius. And like, the problem is that we saw what it looks like to have a coach that's an actual advantage every week, and then they stuck us with Dirk Cutter. So of course we're going to be pissed off watching that joke of an offense go out there and succeed in spite of Dirk Cutter, when we saw Kyle Shanahan elevate Matt Ryan to an MVP, turn Julio Jones into, like, just turning in that 2015 season. It was crazy. He almost had 2,000 yards. Like, then in 2016, like, Aldrick Robinson was catching long bombs every other game. Like, Taylor Gabriel was like a legit wide receiver 3 that year. We've gone from just being a super smart team to being a team that gets outcoached by even the worst teams. Like, the Bears coaching staff is not a staff that you look to be like, well, I think this is a really smart team, really smart coaching staff we're dealing with. Like, Matt Nagy was a punching bag last year for how poorly they called the offense. And they came in here and pantsed the Falcons in Atlanta. Like, I mean, you got outcoached.
We are the remedy.
Yeah.
We do have what you need to get back on track.
I mean, and like, got to give the defense credit. They did not make Mitch Trubisky look like a god. Like, that was our greatest fear. Like, they got Mitch Trubisky benched at least, but then they did a quarterback change and it worked, and they lost the game. So, what's the real takeaway here? But like, stop hiring coaches that sound good in an interview but ultimately aren't smart coaches. Like, this is the NFL. Like, you can't just have a good speech and a good demeanor and be a nice guy and succeed, because you're going to get blasted by all the people that actually know what the hell they're doing. Like, there's no excuse anymore. Analytics is available on Twitter. Like, the Falcons may not have an analytics department. That's okay. Follow Ben Baldwin on Twitter, Dirk Cutter. Literally read his tweets, and that's all you need to do, for God's sake. Like, it's not like it's hard. Like, this is not even complicated analytics. It's like, well, they're very, very simple reasons why you don't run on 2nd and 10. Here are all these reasons. And then Dirk Cutter's like, nah. Like, nah, we don't do that, okay? Like, this is what we do. We try to get to 3rd and short, okay, because that's what my grandpappy told me, and my pappy after that. And, like, no offense to people that call their relatives pappy, but it seems like something an older football coach would do. So that's just
down
where I'm going
with
pappy. Yeah, down with pappy. But, why do you want that? Like, there's so many better ways to play. There's so many better ways to run your football team. There's so many better ways to run a defense, so many better ways to run an offense. And you have this defensive scheme that's gotten roasted like 4 out of 6 years, and an offensive scheme from the early 2010s that hasn't changed a bit, and you're trying to like smash it together with the West Coast offense, and it's not working that great. So I just don't understand, like, what was the upside of all this? Like, I guess that's what I want to know. Like, what was the upside of bringing these two back? Like, 10-6, limping into the playoffs and then getting blasted by a team that's actually good? Like, was that really, like, that seems to me like that was the upside of this team.
Mm-hmm.
Because
they're going to win Monday, though.
Inexplicably, yeah, inexplicably.
There's only one way this goes.
Yeah.
We dragged this thing out to the bitter end again.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty
I'm just
bad.
looking at the 2016 team, because I was, thinking about how we do have, I mean, our offense now is pretty damn good, but they're just, coached poorly. But, like, Taylor Gabriel, he didn't even start the year on the roster. Didn't he come in, like,
maybe.
because of the Browns?
Yeah, I think the Browns cut him.
Aldrick Robinson. It's just, like, the amount of talent. I mean, Nick Williams was on the roster. Like, I mean, our receivers are so much better now, in my opinion, anyways. But
when they're healthy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually insane, and that just speaks more about Kyle Shanahan's brilliance. Yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy. And you look at like the difference of how the running backs were used. Having 105 targets to running backs through 3 weeks. I mean, are we even like what is? I don't know what it currently is, but it can't be even on par to something like that.
Yeah,
Crazy.
It's crazy. But yeah,
But,
I mean,
you know, at this point, it's like for me, usually by, you know, week 3, week 4, it's like if this was happening any other year, I would be totally, you know, right there crushed with everyone else. But, you know, as upsetting as it is, I mean, like a month or two ago, we weren't even positive we were going to have normal football.
right.
So I can't be too mad about everything that's happening because it's nice to have Falcons football back, even if it's a complete dumpster fire. And, you know, we pretty much assumed it was, but, you know, it's football. It's better than nothing, even if they are embarrassing.
Yeah, they are embarrassing. That's as good a segue as any to talk about this Packers game a little bit because, you know, this is, like we said, week 3 was a must-win. Well, like, I don't know what the next level of must-win is, but whatever it is, that's what Monday's game against the Packers is because while there are, you know, a few historic examples of teams going 0-3 and making the playoffs, including one in recent memory, I think the Texans ended up making the playoffs after that. 0-4 is kind of a different story. 0-4 is very much the end of your year. And while, you know, I think we could argue about whether Dan Quinn actually gets fired after 0-4 or not, you know, it doesn't really matter to me because I think if you go 0-4, you're probably fired at the end of the season or the bye week, you know, regardless, just because the team was out of contention, you know, after 4 weeks. Like, that's totally unacceptable to anyone. I would think, especially to Arthur Blank.
And what's crazy is it's forgotten, but there's an extra playoff team in each conference this year.
There is.
So usually the stats that's like, oh, if you start whatever 0-3, it's a you know, that kind of, not that it goes out the window, but we haven't had that extra. You know, you have an extra team who's going in. So, but not that it matters because
yeah,
it's out of control already.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's like we brought these guys back for reasons that were totally inexplicable to fans because of continuity, and and they're like, oh, well, that 6-2 was the real season, and then you proceed to go 0-4 to start the season. Like, like what a giant middle finger to your fan base, and just proof that you were so wrong. Like, it's just like Arthur Blank. I mean, look, like people might think Arthur Blank is stupid. He's not. Like, that's as big of an insult to him from this coaching staff as anything you could lob at him. So, like, while you might think he's all buddy-buddy with Dan Quinn and stuff like that, I guarantee you Arthur Blank is pissed. And, I mean, it's probably... And I know he usually waits till the end of the season, but, like, he's been burned now. Like, he stuck his neck out and did something that was unpopular with the fan base to give Quinn another chance, because I'm sure Quinn was like, oh, you know, I can fix this, and all the players were going to bat for him because they like him and all this. And then he comes in here and drops an 0-4 stink bomb to start the season, including being the first team in NFL history to blow back-to-back 16-point leads in the fourth quarter. Like, yeah. Goodbye. Like, you know, and they're going to get waxed on Monday night. And we're going to talk about this right now. Like, I mean, this is arguably the best offense in the NFL in the Green Bay Packers, averaging nearly 41 points per game on offense.
Yeah. Really?
Oh, yeah. 40.7.
Oh, no.
They are better
they
than
put
the
37 up on the Saints, who have a pretty decent defense.
Yes. They have so far not turned the ball over once on offense. They score on almost 70% of their offensive drives. They convert over.
And Devontae Adams has been missing, what, 1 or 2 games?
Yeah,
like, they're not even having their best receiver. Yeah. And maybe they get him back. I don't know his injury update currently, but...
Yeah, like the Packers are an offensive juggernaut. They're first in scoring, second in total yardage, and first in yards per play. So it's not just
Aaron
like
Rodgers is upset.
Oh yeah, he's big mad. He's big mad from that, you know, Jordan Love pick. So that was very smart apparently. But you know, they're strong passing the ball and they're really strong running the ball. They're second in rushing and third in yards per carry. Like 5.5 yards per carry is what they average. And they're only allowing 1.9% sack percentage, which is second. So they're not allowing a lot of sacks either, despite a ton of offensive line injuries. So the Falcons' best way to beat a team is to outscore them. It's the only way, because the defense is god-awful. And to be fair, the Packers' defense is not very good. Like, the Packers have actually faced the second fewest offensive plays of any defense. So while their like raw yardage and scoring stats actually seem good, their yards per play is dreadful. Like, they're actually tied for the worst defense in terms of yards per play with Seattle. And they allow like more. They allow a higher third down percentage than the Falcons defense. So this is not a good defense, despite what people may say. I mean, they're not a good defense. So like, this is a defense the Falcons can score on, but they're going up against an offense that is much better than them. So I don't really see the path. I mean, I guess we're praying for all the turnover regression to hit them at once. Like, they haven't turned the ball over yet in 3 weeks, so maybe they're going to turn it like 5 times in this game. Like, maybe that's what we can hope for, like a miracle. I mean, what do you guys think?
Corey?
Well, it's weird. Like, do you guys remember last year when they were about to go into New Orleans? It's like early November. And we were all just convinced that was going to be a public paddling, just the worst possible afternoon that could have happened. I didn't watch the game on purpose. And I remember I was gonna meet somebody to go to the movies, and I got this text message on my phone. Someone was like, "Hey, the Falcons are up," and I was like, "Oh, they have like 3-0 or something," and they were up by like 10 points in New Orleans. And I was like, oh, I've got to tune into this. And I watched the rest of the game on my phone, and they ended up winning by a pretty sizable margin. And I think that in the San Francisco game are why Dan Quinn still has his job, because they beat these really, really good teams pretty convincingly. And it's like, oh, they're the Falcons. Where have they been? And I just, after everything this year and how awful the last 2 weeks have been, it would not surprise me at all, because of the dumb trajectory of this team, if they come out Monday night and play close. It would not surprise me. And I bet you money, even if they lose, if they play close, Blank's not firing him.
No, and like, honestly, they might not fire him just because it's Monday night and they got to play a game in like 6 days. So like, that might be the reason also. But yes, like, I mean, obviously, if they win, Blake's probably not going to fire them. If they lose close, he's probably not going to fire them. If they lose like really embarrassingly badly, he probably has to.
About the buzz.
He probably has to. Like, and I think he's probably said as much. Like, look, like, if you embarrass me again on national TV, like, I can't keep you anymore. Like, I just can't. Like, this is not something that I can allow publicly anymore. So
it's indecent.
I mean, yeah, like, I honestly think Blank will be like, this would be too, like, the team's already a laughing stock, but like, you just can't keep a coach around after that. And he still might do it just because, like we said, the logistics of the week, but like, Dan Quinn is basically playing for his job this week and every week after this. And I don't really know that, like, for me personally, like, even if they like win a bunch of games and limp into the playoffs and then get waxed in the first round or something, like, I'm not convinced. Like, you still have to change the staff, but it's just
Well,
go ahead.
I just want to say, if you missed on the Falcoholic.com, we had an article come out 2 days ago or yesterday, I can't remember. But basically, Ian Rappaport said that, kind of laid out the timeline of Dan Quinn's possible firing, that this next 2-game stretch is crucial. For some reason, it's taken this. But so if they, lose, which they most likely will, against the Packers on Monday night, don't expect a firing on Tuesday. Like, they're still going to let him play or coach when they play the Carolina Panthers the next week. And then if for some reason they lose that game, that's probably where you see something happen. I mean, that's according to him and his sources and whatever, but that kind of gives you like a little timeline of what they're looking at apparently. But I mean, at this point, it's kind of expected they're going to lose against Green Bay. That Carolina game, if they lose against Carolina, I mean,
just get them out of here.
I think us three and the people in the chat could be competitive against them. So we'll see what happens.
What are they going to do against that Carolina secondary? Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, and DJ Moore for that wide receiver core. That's really good. And Teddy's no slouch. Like,
I mean, it's
Nick Foles blasted him.
It's going to be a Yeah.
No, they're definitely going to lose to the Panthers, but like, if anything, they're just going to inexplicably win against the Packers and then just blow it again against the Panthers. Like, that is very much the style of this team. But it's, man. Yeah, especially if they blow another lead. in this game, like that's definitely another thing that could.
They have that stink on them now, where it's
yeah.
like, I mean, if the Super Bowl didn't do it, you know, the national media, that's the biggest thing, is driving it into the ground. Like, that's the Falcons brand now.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, the Super Bowl, it wasn't. But now, I mean, you have people who normally don't even talk about the Falcons literally cracking jokes on them and stuff because, you know, they earned it. They did it back-to-back weeks. How do you blow 2 26-10 leads?
Yeah.
And then those records, my God, it was like it's never happened where a team has lost 2 games, I believe, in a season that they're up 15+ in the fourth quarter. Like, that shouldn't happen, but, you know, here the Falcons are doing it, and the national media has caught on to it, and they're just going to – I mean, if that kind of thing annoys you, which it does for me because, you know, I've been a Falcons fan all my life, like, it's going to annoy me, but, you know – avoid the pregame because they're going to be talking about that. Hell, they're going to be talking about it during the game. You know, the Falcons find themselves up on the Packers somehow. They're going to be like,
oh, yeah, is this going to happen again?
You know, I mean, it looks like it's time to blow this up.
All right, game starting in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, too. Like, when you blow this many leads in this public of a fashion, like, the other team is always going to feel like they're in it. They're never going to be demoralized. They're never going to be afraid that they can't come back because you've made yourself the paragon of failure. Like, they'll be like, oh, we're down 10? Who cares, man? It's the Falcons. Yeah, we got this. Like, they're going to be just fine. Like, no one's going to be worried. And that's a huge disadvantage, too. Like, if you can't mentally affect your opponent, and in fact your opponent is, like, so confident that you're going to blow it, like, this is all things that contribute, you know, to your team sucking. And it's the opposite for the Falcons. As soon as, like, we all felt it, like, oh, they're going into the fourth quarter with a big lead again. I wonder if they're going to blow it. Like, if we're thinking it, the players are definitely thinking it. I'll tell you that. And what do you know? They blew it. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't see that this team can mentally recover from this. Like, it's like, why would you... Like, what faith do you have in this coaching staff to fix anything, first of all? Like, I wouldn't. Like, Jesus. Like, the players aren't stupid. They're not just like, oh, well, I trust Dan Quinn. Like, I know they say that in press conferences, but, like, come on. Like, Todd Gurley's out here like, oh, it's our fault. You know, like, Gurley, you've been here for, like, 3 weeks, buddy. Like, they've been blowing leads for years. Like, you know, I guess I appreciate you trying to fall on the sword for Dan Quinn, but players have been falling on the sword for Quinn since he got here. Like, last year it was just press conference after press conference. Oh, it's us. It's not Quinn. Like, at a certain point, it is Quinn. It's not you. Like, players shouldn't be having to spend their whole press conference defending their own coach. For God's sake, man, it's sad. It's just really sad. And yeah, you shouldn't have to ask your players to do something like that, personally. Like, if your players are going out there defending your coach every single week, it means it's time to fire your coach. Because
it is, and they're gonna do it eventually. Like, and the bad thing is gonna be, though, is like, I think in 2014 a lot of us got kind of spoiled to this idea that, like, oh, they're going to be the ultimate job someone wants. But think about this. You're going to have Minnesota potentially with a new coach next year. You're going to have Houston with Deshaun Watson potentially with a new coaching hire next year. And you may have Denver if they go ahead and move on from Vic Fangio. 3 spots, 1 with a really good defense, 2 with young, promising quarterbacks. It's like, I feel like we're going to get a good hire. I just don't know if we're quite going to be like the ultimate landing spot people think we will be.
This past year would have been the...
Yeah, it would have
to do it.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I mean, you could definitely make a case probably for Denver being one of the top ones, but I think coaches know that Elway is like a very nosy GM, and they might not really want to get involved with that. Like the Falcons, if they clean house, they could even let the head coach decide who he wants to have as his GM and make it. They could go that route with it.
Because I think Minnesota, as talented as they are, their GM, I think it's Rick Spielman, right?
Yeah.
He just signed an extension or whatever, so he's not leaving.
Yeah, and the problem with Minnesota is they just gave Kirk Cousins a huge extension, and he's been the problem with that team. So is an offensive coach going to want to go there and be shackled to Kirk Cousins for the next 3 years? Like, that's the problem with Minnesota. And that defense has not been as good as they should be either. So, like, that... So each of these teams has problems. The Falcons, you know, it's more like, is there anything on the defense really? Like, you know, and you have to, you know, deal with Matt Ryan, who's an aging quarterback who's still good. But the Falcons, like, honestly, they can be as attractive as they want to be. Like, are they gonna, if they have a top 5 pick, is Arthur Blank gonna say you can draft a quarterback, or is Arthur Blank gonna say no, we're not drafting a quarterback, Matt Ryan's our quarterback? Because if he inserts himself in that way, that could really throw a wrench in things. Because I think if you go after a Bieniemy or an Arthur Smith and they say, like, look, we're picking in the top 5, I think that Justin Fields, if he's there, or Trey Lance, if he's there, I think we need to invest in that. Like, we're not going to be, like, our team's going to be good. We're not going to be picking in the top 5 again. You have to give them the flexibility to take that quarterback. And it doesn't have anything to do with Matt Ryan. If anyone slanders Matt Ryan in the chat about this, we're going to have words. But, like, Matt Ryan is, like, 36, 37 years old. Like, he is approaching the end of his career. He can't be traded in 2021, so anyone who's fantasizing about that, don't. It's not great to trade him in 2022 either. You eat about 20-something million in dead cap for that. It's possible then, though. And then in 2023, it becomes feasible to really do that. So in that scenario, you would basically have to say that you would be drafting a quarterback to sit for at least a year behind Matt Ryan, which is probably fine, especially if you're going after a Fields or a Trey Lance that might need a little more seasoning compared to, like, Trevor Lawrence. But, like, I think we as a fan base and Arthur Blank as the owner has to be willing to at least have that conversation, because I don't think it's unreasonable for an offensive mind to want to take a quarterback with a top 5 pick. I just don't, like, as much as I love Matt Ryan, I'm probably one of the biggest Matt Ryan fans on here. Like, if you really believe in that coach, like a Bieniemy or an Arthur Smith, and believe that they're going to take your team to the playoffs immediately, which is what you would want if you're hiring a Falcons head coach right now, you're not ending up with another top pick. So you're probably not going to be in range of a quarterback of this caliber again. So, I mean, I think we have to have that conversation. What do you guys think about that?
I'm kind of at a point right now where I really, really like the way that Kansas City did Mahomes. I think that their plan was bewilderingly smart. They drafted him in 2017. They told Alex Smith, look, it's your job this year, and we're going to let Mahomes take 1 year and just soak everything in. And then the second they play him, he just goes on a rampage. I really do think that Matt Ryan, it's weird because no one knew Eli Manning would phase out so quickly. There was just a point where Manning was still, like, with Odell Beckham Jr. and Victor Cruz. Like, they were still, like, playing some pretty inspired football, and then just he was done. And there really is just no moment where if a quarterback is going to go from playing pretty darn well to Father Time just said hello. Mm-hmm. Saints fans are seeing it right now with Drew Brees. Drew Brees is finally giving out after all these years, and he's a liability in the passing game for them. So, it's just, I really feel like the only way they draft a quarterback next year is if it's in that top 5, top 10 range. You have a new offensive coaching staff, and their guy is there. And if they can just put him behind Matt Ryan for a year, Matt Schaub will be gone. You'll need a backup. You'll say, look, we feel like we can win with this roster right now. We don't really need that super impact player to come in. But then again, I feel like Arthur Blank is always going to have a somewhat of an influence on what goes on in this organization. And he could tell a new coaching staff and a GM, look, I want you to win with my guys. I want you to win with the people who I have on these billboards and who I have all these jerseys printed out for. It's like, I want you to win with the people I have all this money tied up in, because this is what kind of Falcons have been. This is what's going to get the most people excited immediately. But nothing gets a fan base energized like a new quarterback. So, if they somehow ended up with a number 1 pick, they're going to pick Trevor Lawrence. No question. That's how that will go. They will not trade that number 1 pick. Lawrence could be the next Peyton Manning type player. Like, they're just going to take him, sit him for a year, and then figure out what to do with Ryan later. Like, that's just how that will go. Although I don't think that's going to be very plausible. I think the Falcons will end up picking more towards the high teens again. I think they will string together some wins at some point and be in that range. But
yeah, they're going to fire Quinn and then go on a tear and finish like 9-7.
No, yeah, exactly. They're always going to make the worst possible decision for themselves.
We find out Raheem Morris is actually a god, and he wasn't able to call the defense the way he wanted, and finally does, and all of a sudden they turn into like this top 10 defense and actually are good. So. But not in time to make the playoffs, just in time to ruin the draft pick. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is very Falcon-y, but
yeah.
I don't know. I still feel like Ryan's playing at a really high level. I just don't. I don't know what you do, and there's no way to get out of that contract. So it's just like, I think he's going to be the Falcons quarterback for at least the next year, 2 years.
Probably
Now, if
2
they don't
years.
draft a quarterback next year, which I don't know if they will necessarily, I mean, they may just want to get the best player on the board and put him in there, just see if they can find some immediate success. But I think in the next, I don't know if he'll sign another contract here. I just don't know, especially if there's a new coach that'll want somebody new. And you've also got Julio Jones' contract to worry about in the future. Like, we're entering the end of a gigantic era of this team, and I just don't know how long everybody's longevity will be.
Yeah, I don't really know where you go with that, because like moving on from Matt Ryan won't be particularly popular, and like the thing is, like, Matt Ryan, the best case scenario theoretically would be that if they do decide to go the quarterback route, like they have a top 5 pick and they get, you know, a quarterback they really like with a new offensive head coach, is that Matt Ryan continues playing like extremely well. Like, he's very good in 2021 and very good in 2022, and this team is very competitive. And then they're able to flip Ryan for like a first-round pick because he's still playing at a high level, and someone is totally fine absorbing that salary to get, you know, probably 2 to 3 years of a very good quarterback, kind of like, you know, Peyton Manning at the end of his career and Brett Favre and all that. So, like, that's probably the best case scenario, is that Matt Ryan continues just playing really well, and the Falcons are able to get, you know, premium compensation for him from a team that's in really desperate need of a quarterback. They think they're just a quarterback away from competing, and there's teams like that every single year. Like, imagine, like, assuming the Falcons and the Bucs run in the same division, like, Matt Ryan would have been a far more tantalizing target for that team than Tom Brady. You know, because he has more in the tank. So it's just, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Like we said, financially, it's dicey for the next year, 2 years. But in that third year, that's when you really could potentially move on, and then we would just, you know, kind of see what happens from there. But yeah, it's a difficult situation. But I think Iron Rain, I guess Iron Rain's asking why we're discussing moving Ryan. I think the reason you have to discuss it is because that could be the difference between getting that top-tier offensive head coach who wants to get a new quarterback to groom or not. Because once you draft that quarterback in the top 5, then it becomes a question of when, not if, with Matt Ryan. And it doesn't, like, we're not slandering Matt Ryan. None of us have a problem with Matt Ryan. I think we're all perfectly happy if they decide to just keep him and either flip that pick, you know, for a team that's trying to get a quarterback, or they take, you know, a top player at that spot if they are picking that high. So, like, both of those options are fine. It just, you don't want to foreclose at this point, because then you could limit yourself from the top guys. And I think the most important thing this offseason is getting that top coach, the elite coach, like the Sean McVay or, you know, the Andy Reid of this coaching class. Like, you need to get that elite guy, because that is going to make all the difference for you for the next, if you hit on that coach, like, that's maybe the one thing that's even better than hitting on a quarterback, is hitting on that elite coach, because that guy could be with you for 20, 30 years. Like, you know, like with Bill Belichick. I mean, they've built, you know, 2 decades of success under Bill Belichick. Like, so that is the most important thing. You have to nail that head coaching hire, and giving that head coach the most options makes you the most desirable landing spot. So to me, that's the most important thing for this offseason, is making this team the most desirable landing spot for the coach that you want. And I think they have a lot of leverage to get there, because they, you know, the cap is probably the weakest part of what they have, but in terms of quarterback, you know, they have arguably the strongest of any of the teams. In terms of, like, overall talent, they probably, like, the defensive talent is better than it seems, like, just straight up. Like, I think a good, smart coach knows that if he gets, like, a quality defensive coordinator in here, like, folks were asking, you know, we talked a lot about offensive coaches, like, who's a defensive coordinator you want, like we said with the Broncos, like Vic Fangio, if he gets fired, like, bring him in here to coach the defense and just let him do his thing.
Mike Zimmer, maybe.
Yeah, maybe Zimmer. You know, there's going to be defensive coaches to bring in to help take over the defense if you get an offensive guy. And I think that's the way that they have to go. But we'll see. I mean, they haven't even fired Quinn at this point, so we're probably getting a little ahead of ourselves.
We'll be talking about it on the next couple shows.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it for a while, so we probably shouldn't wear it out too much. But, yeah. Well, we've done our 90 minutes here, folks. But before we wrap up, I do want to remind you to throw a like at the video if you're enjoying the show. That helps other folks on YouTube find us. And then if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. You'll get notifications when we go live. Evan, I'll go to you first. He's Evan Birchfield at Evan Birchfield on Twitter. Evan, anything you want to close on? Anything you want to plug before we wrap up?
No, I mean, one thing to watch, I do article every Tuesday, statistically speaking. It's just got like random stats, records, whatever. One thing to watch, Julio's currently tied with Roddy White for the most receptions in franchise history with 808. And Julio, if he plays, should hopefully break it. All he needs is one catch on Monday night. And not to throw shade at Roddy White, but it's kind of incredible. Julio Jones, so he's currently has 808 receptions, same as Roddy White had for us. And he did it with 109 fewer targets, and he has 1,443 more yards. Like, that's nothing against Roddy White, but
that's
Julio,
yeah.
That's an amazing statistic, because Roddy White, outside of Julio, is our best receiver in franchise history, and Julio Jones has just like demolished his record. And he's pretty close to the touchdown record. He needs 7 touchdowns to have the most receiving touchdowns in Falcons history. But obviously that, it's going to be a little bit. It ain't happening Monday, but maybe sometime throughout the season he'll break that. And that's pretty much it. For those watching, we appreciate you watching us every week and after the game and stuff. Just don't, Eric's not here to say it, but don't take it so serious. Unfortunately, the season's a lost cause anyways, because if they fire Dan Quinn, they're not going to end up just turning it around. The same people are going to be in position.
Happens.
Dan Quinn isn't doing anything anyway, so if you fire him, the people who are actually doing the stuff are still there. They're not going to just wake up and make the Super Bowl. As much as I would love that, they're just not going to. So enjoy it. It's football that we weren't even sure we were going to get. So yeah, and you can find me on Twitter at Evan Birchfield, and we just appreciate you spending 90 minutes with us talking about Falcons stuff, complaining
endlessly about the state of this team. There's so much material. I feel like we could go for 3 hours, but we got to save some of it for the ensuing weeks as well. But also with us tonight, Falcoholic's resident video correspondent and movies, Corey Woodruff at Corey Woodruff 47. Corey, anything you want to close on tonight?
Yeah, I think Evan's right. You have to enjoy it because it's football. The world's on fire right now, so if the Falcons suck, it's kind of like, throw it in the pile. Yeah, it's just like it's 2020. Like, of course they were going to come for the Falcons. This year has no mercy. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Corey Woodruff 47, and I do a column, try to at least every week for the Falcoholic. You can check that out and come on these little shows here, and Kevin's been doing this for so long, and has done such a wonderful job with this program. I remember coming on the show like 3 years ago, and Kevin had been like multi-years in. So I have no idea if people have really ever thank you to him publicly for doing this. But this show is always so good, and Kevin is the heart and soul of all of the Falcoholics live content. So he does phenomenal work in his articles, but the audio stuff too is just really, really, really good. So at least publicly, I've been a part of the Falcoholic for over 3 years now, and I've always been impressed by Kevin's hustle and his work ethic, and it's just always so fun to come on these shows.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Corey. I really appreciate that, man.
Kevin, can I plug one thing real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Just for, DW and Gina, they do the main Falcoholic, podcast or whatever. And it's kind of a cool thing just for anybody who's watching the show. You can now call in, if you listen to that podcast, if you're interested in it, you can call in. They have a voicemail for it. So you can leave a message, and throughout the podcast they'll talk about whatever your question or comment or whatever's on your mind, sort of thing. But you can call that number and leave a voicemail. It's free. It's 404-592 28-3. But
I can't believe they got that number. That's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to plug, I have nothing to do with that show, but I think it's just something where if you're interested in getting your thoughts out there, aside from just, commenting on articles and stuff, you can share it. And again, I'll read it one more time. It's 404-592-2823. So.
It's the best part of that line. Yeah. No, but that is a lot of fun. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with that. So definitely check that out too. The flagship Falcoholic podcast. I think they do multiple shows a week now as well. So definitely check that out if you need even more Falcons content. And of course, I am Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin on Twitter. I've got articles coming out all week. Tomorrow I've got my magnum opus cutter hit piece. No, it's just another article talking about the downfall of this scheme. Bringing attention to the fact that we run the ball the third most on second and long. So look for that tomorrow, and then the pregame coverage this weekend, and then on Monday night, guys, we will have a post-game show afterwards. That'll be a lot of fun, I hope. I'm sure you guys will enjoy it either way, so whatever. But it's been awesome this year. The post games have just been so crazy in terms of like viewership. We've had like 500 people for the last two. It's been totally crazy in terms of numbers. This is by far the best season for us. So we appreciate all the new folks that have joined us this season. We hope you guys stick around for more, and we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going as long as there's football, and it seems positive. There was a little bit of a COVID scare this week with some of the teams, but we're gonna stay positive and hope.
I think it got postponed.
Yeah,
one
of the games did. Yeah, I think the Titans game
and
did.
Steelers.
Yeah, so we'll hope that that's just a blip and the season keeps going. But we're just gonna hope for the best with that. We'll hope AJ Terrell obviously is okay in his return. We get to see him again soon. And we'll just hope that the Falcons are, a little bit better. Maybe not enough to like ruin the draft pick, but like enough, that they're fun to watch. That would be good.
We still got to sign a kicker.
We do, yeah. Is it going to be, is it going to be Forbath or Elliott Fry? I forgot to ask our resident kicking correspondent Evan Birchfield about this. So which one of those two would you prefer?
Well, I was trying to get the Matt Bryant train rolling once again, and it just didn't work. So. Yeah, probably Elliott Fry, because I believe they they worked him out when they decided to sign Younghoe Koo, and didn't they work him out a second time? Maybe it was when they signed Blair Walsh.
God,
I think
former Falcons great Blair Walsh.
Yeah, he was a good preseason addition. So I mean, third time's the charm, perhaps, and it's not like they're. I know we're ending the show. I don't want to go on a kicking rant, but again, this is
save that for next week.
Like Evan about the Falcons kicking situation.
I know I shouldn't care, but I do. But they should have had it lined up. They didn't have anybody else lined up. Like there was no workouts or tryouts during the off season where nothing was happening. And now we're in this situation where they need a kicker. So
yep. Oh yeah, Giorgio Tavecchio, he's out there. Yeah, Giorgio Tavecchio, he's available.
At this point, do it. Why not?
Why not? I mean, Agent of Chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have the pressure of being handed the job because
he'll probably be great now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't give. Yeah, I don't know. But it'll probably be Elliott Fry. So, stay tuned to Falcoholic. I'm sure that'll be on there soon because you got to have a kicker. He's got a groin injury. He's not going to be kicking.
No, he will not be kicking. So, all right, folks. Thank you once again for tuning in. We will see you guys on Monday after Monday Night Football. We'll pray that it is not too painful. And we'll go from there. So, you guys enjoy your stress-free football Sunday. You don't have to worry about anything except hoping for a Saints loss, I guess. So we'll all be joining in that, and then we will see you guys on Monday Night Football.